Today we're going to be knocking out the Genesis Coupe fuel system. At least that's what I hope. Definitely super stoked to get this done. I've been putting off the fuel system for some reason, but it's finally time that it's pretty much the last thing we need, so we have to do it. So first things we're gonna start with is going to be the fuel basket assembly. Now I actually already finished this. The fuel pump is a DW300. A lot of Genesis owners are familiar with this fuel pump, as well as a DW400. The pump drops in, it comes with its own harness and the feed line. So you're gonna have 3 fittings up top. You're gonna have your feed, and then you're gonna have to drill for a return, and then you're gonna have the siphon from the other side of the fuel tank. Now, I don't know how well you guys are gonna be able to see this, but right here I have a Evo 8 Venturi. So as it's returning, it's going to pull vacuum and draw in fuel from the other side of the tank. All right, we got the basket back installed and I went ahead and hooked up the siphon line. As far as the plug goes and how we're gonna actually power the fuel pump, that's gonna come in a little bit. But for now, I guess it's fuel lines. So it's also important to remember that it's gonna take about 30 feet of hose to do this, to run a feed and return. And I also did not cut it yet. So this is the end. It's actually coming up over the car. All I did was just kind of close the end like this, and you mark which one is the feed and the return. So they are ran, but nothing is cut yet due to the fact that just want to make sure we have everything kind of mocked up and have everything the right length before we start putting fittings on. I gutted the factory fuel lines, took it all out. So the only thing I was left with was these brake lines. So the new fuel lines that I put in, which is going to be this PTFE hose, is now run in the factory spot. So this is actually pretty easy. I was expecting it to be a bit harder. We have our feed and return up and connected in the tank, and we got our fuel filter in as well. The fuel lines kind of come up along the chassis here. Right here is our feed line. The feed line is actually connected to the fuel rail with a 90. And then all that needs to happen is the fuel is going to come up into the rail, go around and come on this side. And what we're gonna do here is put another 90 and have it go over here to the fuel pressure regulator. And I plan on mounting this somewhere over here. We're gonna make a bracket for that at some point, and then the return is going to go on back. So these injectors are actually 62-pound injectors, which for an NALS is pretty big. Those are the injectors that I kind of had extra and on hand, so they might not be the permanent ones. But with that being said, we're gonna leave the harness for the injectors just kind of as is. I know it's ugly. Well, I did my best to try to harness them up. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a snake after it eats something. That's kind of what the harness looks like. From a distance, it looks pretty good, but when you get up close, you can see there's a freaking giant plug in there. So unfortunately, I don't really know what else to do here, but it does look a lot better. I was hoping to make the wheel video soon too, because I was supposed to get my wheels back. However, I was sent the wrong lips, so they're still getting rebuilt by that guy. It's gonna be an additional 2 weeks. Not a huge deal. In preparation of our coolant reservoir coming in, I went ahead and ran pretty much 2 lines that are gonna go to the reservoir. Next little thing to consider is just getting the vacuum hoses ran, which luckily on this is not bad at all. There's literally 2 vacuum lines that I need. Line comes off the back of the intake manifold. I just kind of have it supported right there in that little bracket. Goes down into the firewall, and then if you guys don't know, my ECU is mounted in the glove box, and then you see that little blue line. I put an adapter on that and got the vacuum hose attached. Alrighty, so we did some car musical chairs here. The Eclipse got pulled out, and so did the Gen, and then we pulled the Gen in on this side and then pulled the Evo in for some work. This thing is aired out right now on the Eclipse wheels. Looking pretty silly in my opinion. We've updated the parts shelf. This shelf has undergone many transformations. So just looking at the engine bay quick, we have made more progress yet again. Also, we got another bike. Check that video out if you haven't seen it yet. As far as engine bay goes, we have officially mounted our coolant reservoir. This is just one from Japan. It's for a 240SX. And basically you can just modify the brackets in here, get it to fit. This thing's all snugged down and kind of just have the fan relays tucked behind it. This is mostly finalized. However, I'm going to be redoing some of these coolant lines, but right now we're going for first start, so everything is not really complete, I would say. We're just trying to get this thing fired up, get it kind of tuned in, and then we're gonna work out all the bugs and clean up the rest after. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to say we have finished the fuel system on this car. The fuel system was like one of those things I was really putting off, I was nervous about, and I just put it off to the last minute. We have finally just finished the fuel system. It is fully complete, and honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I'm gonna start up here in the engine bay. I'm gonna go over everything again. We have our fuel lines coming up here. I have some heat wrap on them that I have to finish, but our feed comes into this rail, and the fuel is gonna come in this rail, go over here, jump to the other side, and then go to the back. From there, I have another piece of hose. It also heat wrapped. It's gonna go to the fuel pressure regulator. We have this side blocked off, so it's gonna come in, and then it's just going to return the excess pressure, and we should be able to hold 58 psi of fuel pressure pretty constantly. Got this mounted to the battery box. Honestly, all came out really well. Shout out to Marcus Rosa. I'm gonna drop his Instagram down below. Huge help on this whole thing, and honestly made it a lot easier for me. So hopping into the rear of the car under the back seat. I already showed you guys the in-tank assembly. We got our lines hooked up in our siphon, and this cover is gonna drop back on. We have all our wiring done. We installed a relay for the fuel pump, always a good thing to do. We have our holly wire coming back here and a 12-volt switched, and obviously we just used the seat ground. So now we're just gonna go in and wrap these harnesses, kind of run them together like so, and I'll show you guys the finished result. Time lapse time, baby. Let's get this harness all cleaned up. That's good enough for me. These things are cleaned up and mounted. Not too bad, not too shabby. I'm going to install these screws, and then the fuel system is fully done, guys. What a freaking relief. So now that the fuel is done, the only extra wire we have from the Holly inside the car here is going to be the tachometer wire. This is to put to a RPM gauge so that we can actually see the RPMs of the new engine. I'm gonna route this up kind of around, and I'm gonna bring it up here. You guys will see why in probably the next video, but I do have an idea for what I'm gonna do about the tach, but we're gonna run this thing first, and then aside from that, we are gonna need to wire up this push button start. If you guys remember, we have the OEM button start, but you're gonna need to put in a second button.